Hello students. So I'm Assistant Professor of Orthopedics, Krishna Karthik. So today topic is injuries of wrist, hand and forearm. Okay. So I'll be going through various common conditions which are required for undergraduate students. So this is the anatomy of the distal radius and its joint. The distal radius is biconcave, triangular and covered with cartilage. The articular surface has articulation with scaphoid and lunate. The medial surface forms a semicircular notch which articulates with the ulnar head. Distal radius and ulna articulate at the radio-ulnar joint. Distal radio-ulnar joint. So the distal radio-ulnar joint is stabilized by triangular fibrocartilage, which is a key stabilizer of the distal radio-ulnar joint. Pronator quadratus is associated with an underlying fat pad, which is seen as a lucent line on distal X-rays. So, how to diagnose the injuries of the wrist, around the wrist? Imaging AP view, lateral views, and oblique radiographs, which are particular for shearing injuries. Okay, partially pronated view allows the visualization of radial styloid. Styloid process injuries are also most common, and I'm going to say about that. So there are various parameters to assess a distal radius injury. So one is radial height, one is ulnar variance. Okay. So as you can see in the slide, radial height, two tangential lines to the styloid tip and distal ulnar surface. The radial height is 11 to 13 normal. Ulnar variance is measured on PA views with the wrist in neutral. And radius is inclined with an angle with the alignment of scaphoid and lunate. As I have told you previously, radius is joined with scaphoid and lunate to radio scaphoid joint, radio lunate joint. So radial inclination is around 21 to 25 degrees. What is the importance is this inclination should be maintained in fracture reduction. We try to maintain it in fracture reduction and while performing operations. The radius is tilted normally volarly towards the volar side. Okay, so the normal angle is 10 to 25 degrees. Whenever you are reducing a fracture of distal radius, we try to maintain it in radial angle and volar tilt. Okay, on lateral view, the deep fat pad of the pronator quadratus and the dorsal skin subcutaneous fat line can be seen anterior to distal radius. Okay, so palmar inclination is important while treating the fractures of distal radius. So what are the pathomechanics? So the distal radius injuries, the injury depends upon the position of the wrist at the time of impact, the magnitude of the force and the direction of the force, and how strong the bone is, physical properties of the bone. Fall on an outstretched hand with the wrist in 40 to 90 degrees of dorsiflexion produces a distal radius fracture with dorsal displacement. So dorsiflexion injury produces a distal radius fracture with dorsal displacement. Lunate can exert a compressive force on the distal radius, producing a so-called die punch fracture. So if you fall an outstretched hand with the radius, with the wrist direct impact to the ground, the lunate can exert a punch force on the distal radius. So it is called as die punch fracture. Unlike styloid fracture of the Colles fracture component results from a force transmitted through intact triangular fibrocartilage complex. So ulnar styloid fracture can also happen in a distal radius fracture, which is due to strong pull of the triangular fibrocartilage complex. The fracture of the distal radius with palmar displacement are attributed to more than one mechanism of injury. Fall on the back of a flexed hand. So if the hand is flexed and you fall with the hand flexed on the dorsum, if the impact side is dorsum, you get a palmar displaced distal radius. The fall on outstretched hand, the fall of the forearm is in supination and pronation around a flexed extended wrist. may be the more common mechanism of injury. So usually most fragments are dorsally displaced, volar displaced or palmar displaced fragments are very less common. The mode of injury is mostly fall on a flexed hand. So how do you describe a fracture around wrist distal radius mostly? Is it extra articular or not involving the joint, wrist joint, or is it intra-articular? So if it involves the wrist joint, mechanism as proper. Configuration, whether it is simple, transverse, oblique, or comminuted. So is it simple or comminuted? Are there more fragments or only two fragments? What is the line of injury? Is it transverse or is it oblique or is it haphazard? As I told you, displacement, whether always the fracture is described by the distal fragment. So whether the distal fragment is displaced dorsally or palmarly, or is it a die punch fracture? What is the tilt of the distal radius fragment? And fourth, how is the ulna and distal radio-ulnar joint? What is the condition of the ulna? Whether there is any ulnar fracture associated with it, or whether there is any ulnar styloid fracture associated with it. How the distal radio-ulnar joint is supposed to be. If it is distal radio-ulnar joint is displaced, there is dislocation of the distal radio-ulnar joint triangular fibrocartilage, so that both the bones will not be in same plane. So what are the complications of distal radius fractures? As I told you, if the triangular fibrocartilage complex is destroyed, both the bones will not be in the same plane. Scaphoid, lunate, and interosseous ligament injuries. There will be multiple bones within the wrist joint, so interligamentous injuries within the bones are common. There is also carpal tunnel, as you know it. Carpal tunnel is associated with distal radius satisfactory reduction. So median nerve might get involved, and there is other chance of ulnar nerve injury when ulna is also fractured. Okay. So post-traumatic radiocarpal osteoarthritis, if it is involving the intra-articular space, so if the joint is also involved, so there is every chance of degeneration of the joint. So heterotopic ossification is always a very rare side effect of distal radius fractures. Reflex sympathetic dystrophy. This is one of the most common side effect of cast application. So sympathetic dystrophy. So there will be severe painful sensation of the hand with loss of hair and everything. Sympathetic dystrophy. So she will not be able to move the fingers of the hand, and associated with it, she will be, the motor functions of the hand will be, interphalangeal joints, everything will be severely restricted. So if you keep the cast very tight and for prolonged periods, there is every chance of reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And sharp fragments of the comminuted fractures might always cause tendon rupture, most commonly extensor pollicis longus. So be careful while reducing the fracture. Look for any sharp margins. Always look for tendon injury, associated tendon injury. So what, coming to epidemiology, there is no racial preference. Okay. What is the sexual preference? Old post-menopausal women. So everything which leads to osteoporosis. So senility, age. If it is more aged person, there is every chance of distal radius fracture. Post-menopausal women are more prone for osteoporosis. So it is most common in old post-menopausal women with female to male ratio of 4:1. Okay. And children are also more prone, and in children, boys and girls, the ratio is 3:1. So in adults, females are more prone, in children, males are supposed to be more prone. Okay. Bimodal age of distribution with peaks occurring around 15 to 14 years and 60 to 69 years. Why this age bimodal distribution is, young children, they are very playful, so they might get injured around these common years, and old age due to, as I told you, post-menopausal osteoporosis, they might get injured. So there is always close reduction. So what are the indications for close reduction? When can you decide you want to treat it conservatively? And when can you decide you want to treat it? You want to intervene post operatively when you want to intervene. So if the dorsal tilt is more than 10 degrees, you have to look for reduction. If there is articular step of 2 mm, more than 2 mm, okay. So if the fracture is displaced more than 10 degrees with the dorsal tilt, with a step of between fragments of more than 2 mm, and if the radius is shortened, as you see, the radius will be pointing more distally than ulnar. So radial styloid tip will be more distal than ulnar tip. So if the radius is shortened, so if the fracture is more displaced, the radius will be shortened. So if the radial shortening is more than 5 mm and the radial inclination is less than 15 degrees. As I have told you, radial angle, it should be between 20-25 degrees if it is decreased to less than 15 degrees. So 4 indications: dorsal tilt more than 10 degrees, radial shortening more than 5 mm, if there is articular involvement and the inclination of the distal radius is less than 15 degrees, you should intervene. So this requires reduction of the fracture. How you want to treat it, conservative or operative, depends upon the fracture pattern. So this is a classification of the fracture treatment preferences. Non-articular, non-displaced, you can always go for conservative. Non-articular, displaced. So first try to reduce it. If the fracture is stable, go for conservative management of cast immobilization. If the fracture is reduced and unstable, then the operative intervention comes. You can operate it with percutaneous pins or K-wire fixation. So if the fracture is non-articular, displaced and it is not getting reduced, then you have to go for operative fixation. Any fracture involving the articular surface, it should be treated. Preference is most commonly operatively. So it can be either pins or fixation with plate or screws. Okay. So fourth is articular displaced. Closed reduction, K-wire fixation, unstable fracture, irreducible fracture, open reduction and fixation with external fixator or plate fixation or percutaneous pins fixation. So simple. If it is reducible and stable, try to treat it conservatively. If the fracture pattern is bad, comminuted, and it is not getting reduced and you are not getting satisfactory reduction, go for fixation methods. It can be either K-wires or external fixator or plate. Most preferably, the fracture is getting reduced and stable, go for K-wire. The fracture is getting reduced and unstable, go for plate fixation. If there are any external injuries, external fixator is preferred. Non-acceptable reduction, if you can see at the slide, this is not acceptable reduction because there is radial angle is not maintained. There is more than 5 mm shortening. The fracture is not reduced completely. And there is tilt, lateral tilt more than 10 degrees. The dorsal tilt is not corrected. So this type of fracture you should try to intervene by operative method. So how do you treat? The surgical treatment, as I told you, various modalities, plate fixation or external fixator fixation. Surgical fixation allows almost immediate mobility. Okay, so you don't need to immobilize unnecessary joints. So you can go for partial, passive movements of surrounding joints if it is a stable fixation. So what is the advantage? As reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is the most common side effect, it doesn't come. So ultimately, less stiffness and greater function is possible with operative fixation. So what are the types of fractures of distal radius? Distal radius includes these types of fractures. So Colles fracture, which is the most common type of fracture. Smith's fracture, which is reverse of Colles. Distal forearm fractures, radial styloid fracture, Barton fracture, and comminuted intra-articular fractures. Okay. What are the most common fractures we come around which are necessary for undergraduates is Colles fracture. So it's a low energy osteoporotic fracture. Most common displacements are explained in Colles fracture. Smith fracture is similar to Colles, but as I told you, the fracture pattern is described by the distal fragment. The distal fragment is displaced anteriorly rather than posteriorly. So radial styloid fractures, intra-articular fractures with subluxation are described by Barton fracture. So Colles fracture, as you can see, Colles fracture is a fracture of the distal metaphysis of the radius with dorsal angulation, dorsal tilt, leading to a silver fork deformity. Colles fracture are seen more frequently with advancing age and women with osteoporosis. So most common type of osteoporotic fracture in elderly aged women with an outstretched hand fall. What are the modalities of treatment? Depending upon the fracture pattern and reduction and stability of the fracture, mold or plaster splints and POP casing are the dictums. Okay. What is the ideal time of immobilization? Ideally, it should be for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. But depending upon the patient compliance and compatibility and fracture pattern, you can vary the duration of treatment. So how do you come to a conclusion of an unstable fracture which cannot be maintained in POP? Okay, greater than 10 degrees of angulation, greater than 5 mm shortening, greater than 2 mm articular step. Comminution is always an indication for operative reduction. Irreducible fracture and loss of reduction after follow-up. So you put a cast, you ask the patient to come after 3 days to check the stability of the fracture and the maintenance of the fracture in the POP and care of the POP. When you take an X-ray after 3 days, if the fracture reduction is not maintained, that's an indication for instability and you need to operate it. So what is Barton fracture? Barton fracture is intra-articular fracture of the distal radius. So any intra-articular fracture involving the distal radius is called as Barton fracture. So there are types. Volar type Barton is a fracture of volar rim of the radius. Dorsal type Barton fracture is a fracture of dorsal rim of the radius. This is a type of fracture where there is shearing type of injury. So it's not a clear-cut there is a shearing force and the force acts angularly. Okay, they have a greater tendency for redislocation and malunion. Okay, so if you can see the slide, the injury is angulated and the force is acting angularly rather than directly at a 90 degrees angles. These usually require operative treatment. As I told you, intra-articular involvement mostly go for accurate reductions and operative treatment. What is a die punch fracture? The lunate compressing the distal radius fracture due to fall on direct wrist injury. So depression fracture of the lunate fossa of the distal radius. This is the result of a transverse load through lunate. So as you can see the slide, this is called die punch fracture. As a blue arrow describes the die punch fracture. The lunate directly compresses on the distal radius articulation. Okay, you have to look carefully for die punch fracture in distal radius fractures. What is the Schaffer's fracture? As I told you, individual fractures of the radial styloid are called Schaffer's fracture. It is isolated fracture of the radial styloid process. The displacement of the fragment is very uncommon. Okay, usually requires surgical treatment. Try to do as the radial styloid is, as you can see in the slide, it is displaced. So you can preferably fix it with a K-wire or screw fixation. As I told you, as you can see with the blue arrow, ulnar styloid process, the triangular fibrocartilage is a tough structure. So in the distal radius fractures, ulnar styloid involvement should be looked for and it is commonly seen. An isolated fracture tip is clinically insignificant, but if it is associated with radial fractures, you should look for stability of the ulnar also. Okay. So what are the common fractures of the distal around the wrist joint in children? Torus or buccal fracture. These are extremely common injuries in children because the children bones are malleable and there is less rigidity in the bones. The bones are more flexible. The word torus means swelling or protuberance. There is no complete fracture. As you can see in the slide, there is small protuberance or swelling. They tend to heal much more quickly than similar type of green stick fractures where one cortex is fractured. So how do you treat them? You treat them with a below elbow short arm cast. Okay. So this common type of torus fracture or buckling fracture is more common in children. This is more severe than torus fracture. As you can see, it is called green stick fracture. Only one part of the bone is broken and the other side is also bent. So the tension side with plastic deformation. If the angulation is more than 10 degrees, reduce the fracture by pulling on both sides and try to put a cast. Okay. This can take more time to heal rather than torus fracture because they tend to occur in the middle and more slowly growing parts of the bone. Okay. But even though they heal more frequently and more solidly than adult bones. Epiphyseal injuries are usually most common in children. So because there is growing ends, epiphyseal injury is most common in children. Usually Salter-Harris type 2 epiphyseal injuries. Redislocation is common after closed reduction, so we'll try to stabilize them with a smooth K-wires, percutaneous pin. You don't open the fracture, you put smooth K-wires through percutaneous methods. So coming to hand fractures, I'm going to just stress upon hand fractures. So what is the aim? What are the hand fractures which are important? So what are the parts of a hand? So metacarpals and phalanges. Scaphoid fracture is one of the important hand fractures. So how do you diagnose them with a normal radiograph? So these are the various bones seen in hand fractures. So metacarpals and scaphoid, lunate, trichoterm pisiform, capitate, hamate, and hamate, okay, trapezium and trapezoid. Okay, so these are the AP and lateral radiographs. Okay, so as you can see, these are the various inter joints between the wrist bones. Okay, so scaphoid is one important bone because it is notorious for avascular necrosis. So how do you treat a scaphoid bone? If it is non-displaced distal pole, you put it in a short spica cast or scaphoid cast. Okay, the avian chances are more common for scaphoid fracture because the blood supply to the scaphoid bone enters through waist. Okay, so if it is more than, how do you treat it conservatively? If it is distal bone and non-displaced, you treat it conservatively. Okay, if it is a waist fracture or head fracture, you try to stabilize with the internal fixation by using screws. Okay, headless compression screws. So operative if it is more than 1 mm displaced, proximal pole, waist fractures, these demand compression screws. So this is the scaphoid cast and that is the headless screw which we compress into the scaphoid bone. So what are the metacarpal parts of a metacarpal? Distal portion is called head, the proximal portion is called base, and the middle portion is called shaft. So metacarpal fractures are head fractures, shaft fractures are base fractures. So thumb metacarpal is most commonly discussed. There are three types of fractures: Bennett fracture, Rolando fracture, and extra-articular fractures. So if it is undisplaced, you can conservatively treatment. If it is displaced, go for a fixation with smooth pins. So Bennett fracture, fracture of the base of the first metacarpal. Okay, you can try to treat it conservatively, and if you feel that is displaced, you can fix it with K-wires. Extra-articular fracture, if it is more than 1 mm, try to fix it with the K-wires. If it is less than 1 mm, try to fix it with cast. So distal phalanx fractures, these are most commonly associated with nail bed injury. These can be treated with splinting and the soft tissue is healthy. If it is not damaged, you can treat it with splinting. There are various splints which can support the soft tissues called cord splint or frog splint. Assess whether there is any nail bed injury or not. Okay. So then coming to forearm fractures. These are most common type of fractures Incidence 10 times less than distal radius fractures. Okay, overall incidence is 1.4 per 10,000. There is male predominance in this, while distal radius fractures are most commonly in females, elderly females. Okay, half of the forearm shaft fractures occurs in males with the ages of 15 to 40 years. Motor vehicular accidents account for important fraction of forearm shaft fractures. So this is a slide about the distal radioulnar joint, the proximal radioulnar joint, and the interosseous membrane connecting the both bones. So what are the movements of the forearm? The forearm has distal radioulnar joint and proximal radioulnar joint and elbow joint. So forearm can be mobilized in elbow flexion, elbow extension, elbow supination, elbow pronation, and distal wrist flexion, distal wrist dorsiflexion, ulnar deviation, and radial deviation. What is the mechanism of forearm fractures? Majority of the forearm shaft fractures occur in young males with good bone stock. The frequent occurrence is in the high setting energy trauma as motor vehicular accidents. Direct injuries of forearm fractures are during defensive injuries. When someone tries to hit you, you obviously cover yourself or duck yourself with the forearm in front of you. So these are most common injuries or gunshot injuries. So there is a term called nightstick injury or nightstick fracture. Okay, this is caused due to direct injury. When someone tries to hit you with something, a strong object, you try to put your forearm by in front of you, then the forearm gets hit. Usually it is the ulna which is exposed outside, so ulna gets hit first. So green nightstick fracture is a type of injury in direct hit. Both bones may be fractured at various parts. They might be fractured in mid shaft, they might be fractured in proximal shaft, they might be fractured in distal shaft. The mechanism is indirect or direct, as I've told you. Indirect is bending force and torsional forces with axial loading. Both bones fracture at the same bone segment due to bending force. So there are various fractures described. Monteggia fracture. So M for Monteggia, medial bone is involved. So ulna is fractured. Bending forces result in Monteggia fracture dislocation, where there is fracture of the proximal ulna. Ulna is medial bone, so Monteggia for medial bone. Proximal ulna is fractured. With the proximal radioulnar joints, it might dislocate or not dislocated depending upon the severity of the injury. Okay. Both bones may be fractured at different levels due to torsional injuries and high energy injuries. The fall on hyperpronated hand, forearm, and the wrist extension can cause both bones fractures at different level called Gallagher fracture. So, Monteggia is medial bone, ulna is fractured at proximal end. Gallagher is radius fractured at the distal end. Okay, ulna is also fractured, and distal radioulnar joint is distal in Gallagher fracture. Classification: at most instances, forearm shaft fractures are classified according to proximal, middle, and distal third or fracture combination. Open fractures are classified according to Castillo's classification. Monteggia and Gallagher fractures have their own sub-classification. So you need to remember only one thing. Monteggia fracture is the forearm shaft fracture with proximal ulnar fracture, medial for Monteggia. Gallagher is other bone, radius involved at the distal end. This is Monteggia, various classification of Monteggia. These are not for undergraduates. So most instances, reduction of the ulnar fracture leads to reduction of the radial head. Okay. So understanding the deformity of ulna and direction of fracture dislocation of the radial head is also important for fracture dislocation. So when the ulna is fixed first, the radius itself relocates. Gallagher fracture, fracture of the radial shaft with the dislocation of the distal radioulnar joint. Okay. So how do you treat, you have fixed the radius, how do you treat the distal radioulnar joint subluxation? You try to put a transverse cable passing through distal radioulnar joint after they are aligned. Okay. Essex low porosity lesion. This is a special injury. An Essex low porosity lesion is a proximal radial shaft or radial head fracture. The proximal migration of the radius tears the interosseous membrane, causing the disruption of the distal radio-ulnar joint. So, the radial shaft fracture of the proximal end with the proximal migration of the radius causes the interosseous membrane to rupture and displacement of the distal radio-ulnar joint. What are the management goals of forearm fractures? Try to obtain adequate reduction. Try to achieve and maintain the adequate reduction. Try to preserve the interosseous membrane and try to preserve the bony contours of the radius and ulna. Anatomical reduction is important to restore the range of movements of forearm because anatomical reduction tries to maintain the structural integrity of the interosseous membrane, which itself is necessary for the supination and pronation movements. So non-operative treatment with less than 50% displacement in children, less than 10 degrees angulation, you can treat it conservatively depending upon the fracture pattern. Greater than 50 degrees displacement, 50% displacement associated with interosseous membrane damage, and you need to take two views, AP view and lateral view. If it is displaced more than 50%, you can't treat it conservatively. In adults, you have to go for operative treatment. So various approaches to fix the various fractures of the ulnar radius. Operative treatment. How do you treat the fractures? Most common and the gold standard preferred is treat it with a plate fixation. If you can't treat it with the plate, try to go for a nail, intramedullary nail or rush nail or tense nail. So what is the indication for tense nailing? Usually it is children's if it is necessary, and compound fractures where plate fixation will lead to infection. What are the outcomes of the forearm fractures? Most common outcome or complication is loss of pronation or supination movements. So movements will not be restored depending upon if it is high volume injury, the interosseous membrane damage is more and the combination is more. The restoration of movements becomes a challenge. So the movements of supination and pronation are thoroughly restricted depending upon the volume of injury. Range of movements are delayed union, because if the fractures are, if the bones are fractured at the same level, one bone unites, most commonly it is seen the one bone unites more frequently than other. So delayed union is more common. Non-union, if unsatisfactory reduction is seen and the fracture mechanics are not maintained, non-union is also most common. Okay, so pain and infection, whether it is superficial or deep, depending upon the type of injury, or if it is a closed or open injury, infection is also a most common side effect, complication. Patient-specific outcomes depend upon the type of injury and the compatibility and compliance of the patient also. Thank you.